While the United States officially denied investigating UAPs until 2017, some nations had always been ahead in their approach to the subject. Leading the world in UAP research is the South American country of Chile. In 1997, the Chilean government officially instructed air traffic control and military personnel to create the Committee for the Study of Anomalous Aerial Phenomenon. The committee studies all reports of UAP activity by commercial, military, and civilian pilots. One of the most well-publicized was a shocking incident that occurred in 2014 when Chilean naval officers flying along the coast of Santiago captured video of a UAP. There was an incident in 2014 where a military helicopter got video of a strange object, kind of looked like a rocket with some sort of plume behind it. Chile, like many other South American countries, seemed to be far more open to the idea that there are objects coming into our airspace. I think one of the reasons why South American countries are more open-minded about the UFO and extraterrestrial question is because it is part of their cultural heritage. In fact, Peru and Bolivia are treasure troves for the ancient astronaut theory. The whole pre-Inca culture and even the Inca culture spoke of these beings of light that descended from the sky. Brazil has had a history of really dramatic UFO encounters. Chile, I think Uruguay maybe as well, but the whole world didn't pay much attention to it. In addition to South America, now other parts of the world are also starting to disclose information about UFOs. Governments are openly investigating encounters reported by both civilians and military personnel. But many researchers believe the most noteworthy country to join this international effort is also one of the most skeptical, Japan. In 2018, the Japanese government released an official statement. For the longest time in Japan, those in charge, those at the top of the defense departments, have denied UFOs. The Japanese government made a sudden press release that said they would not recognize any UFO encounters or extraterrestrial presence on Earth, or in the airspace of Japan. I thought this was very strange, as we had already interviewed 2 pilots who had several incidents and testimonies regarding various pilot encounters in the air and from the ground over the years. Mamoru Santo, a former wing commander in the Japanese Self-Defense Force, said that he regularly heard stories from other pilots as well as civilians about UAP sightings. According to Santo, numerous pilots have reported highly unusual encounters with what they described as cigar-shaped objects. During one such incident, a student in his fighter pilot course even lost control of his craft. But in September 2020, Japan's decades-long policy of secrecy and denial came to an end when Defense Minister Taro Kono tasked the Japanese Self-Defense Forces to make visual recording of any encounter with an unexplained craft. The fact that Japan denied that there was UFO activity happening in their country and now they're establishing the Japanese Space Operations Squadron says to me that there clearly is something going on over the skies of Japan. August 1946. Esteemed U.S. naval officer and explorer Admiral Richard Byrd, one of the first pilots to fly over both the North and South Poles, organizes Operation High Jump, the largest expedition ever to travel to Antarctica, with 13 ships, 23 aircraft, and over 4,700 military personnel. This was very important. After the conclusion of World War II, Admiral Byrd was asked if he would mount a large armada and go for 4 months. But during his explorations, Admiral Byrd allegedly came upon something highly unexpected. This story is said to come from his diaries, not his published account of the trip. Admiral Byrd heard there was an entrance to the center of the Earth through the South Pole. When he flew over the pole, suddenly he's looking at things that shouldn't be there. It was temperate. He tells how all of a sudden he starts to see a shimmering rainbow city that's made of crystal. His airplane is taken control of when he suddenly sees these flying, disc-shaped objects around them. He's escorted into a cavernous type of area where he meets a being he refers to as the Master. In his diary, the Master tells him that they're highly disappointed in what humans are doing with nuclear weapons and how they've recently destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Admiral Byrd's story is congruent with stories from numerous accounts of beings very concerned about what humanity is doing with nuclear weapons. Just ask the Air Force officers at the U.S. missile silos. Bridgeport, Connecticut, 1953. Albert K. Bender, the nation's top UFO investigator, receives a threatening visit that will bring his research to an abrupt and premature halt. Albert K. Bender founded the International Flying Saucer Bureau. This was during the big UFO flap of 1952, when flying saucers were witnessed over Washington, D.C., and many other areas around the world. However, just a year later, he suddenly ended the International Flying Saucer Bureau. He came home one night, went into his bedroom, and suddenly, these three dark shadowy figures materialized through his wall. They were wearing hats and overcoats, they had glowing eyes, and they smelled like sulfur. According to Bender, the three entities communicated with him through telepathy. Afterwards he became ill, and didn't eat for 3 days. He said they gave him headaches, they controlled him telepathically, and he ultimately gave up his UFO research. He told people that had been subscribers, "They told me we come from a very, very far distant place in this universe, and we have been coming and going from your planet for some time." The men in black are mysterious and nefarious entities. They're shadowy, they wear black clothing. Many people believe they're either extraterrestrials or working for extraterrestrials. While the men in black are often portrayed in pop culture as government agents, many who claim to have encountered them believe they are something other than human. There's a theory that the Hat Man and the men in black are actually the ringleaders of the shadow people, and that they direct shadow people to influence humans, particularly to keep them from investigating UFO experiences. In Suffolk County, England, there is a remote forest in the village of Rendlesham that has become famous for being the site of one of the most extraordinary UFO encounters ever reported. The event occurred on December 26, 1980. Airman John Burroughs was performing a routine security check at a U.S. Air Force base when he received orders to investigate a possible downed aircraft. My supervisor called me on the radio and asked me to meet up with him so we could check the east gate. We're driving down the road when all of a sudden he saw some strange lights in the forest. I could see all these multiple color lights and the air felt different. There was electricity on our skin and hair, and that progressively got worse the closer we got to the tree line. Sergeant Peniston reportedly saw a large craft just beyond the tree line. The craft was triangular in shape, measuring about 6 to 7 feet high, black in color. I had come around to the far side of the craft, and that's when I noticed there was inscription on the side. Instead of something familiar, I see these pictorial-type glyphs. Running my hand over the side of the craft, it's like someone was holding a picture up. I could see it in my mind's eye. Zeros and ones. Years later, a computer programmer took this information, ran it through a translation program, and a message emerged. The message read, "Exploration of humanity continuous for planetary advance. Eyes of your eyes. Origin year 8100. When one sees origin year 8100, one is forced to speculate. Might we be looking not just at extraterrestrials but time travelers from the future? Both men had lasting physical effects from the encounter. I started having throat and eye problems. When I saw the doctor, one of his first questions was, had I ever been exposed to radiation? During the dreams I could see that these were time travelers 40 to 50,000 years in the future. The purpose to come back was to correct things, to fix things. Central New Mexico, October 19, 2019. Investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe has invited ancient astronaut theorist Giorgio Tsoukalos to join her on a trip to a spot in the desert just outside Roswell, very near what is known as the Skip Site. According to eyewitnesses, one of the 3 UFOs seen in the sky in July 1947 first crashed to Earth near this location. Linda was contacted by geologist Frank Kimbler, who wants to show her mysterious metal fragments that he found here and search the area for more. Since 2011, Professor Kimbler has uncovered more than a dozen metal fragments that he has subjected to scientific testing and found to be highly unique. When Professor Kimbler laid out his pieces of metal, the first thing that struck me is these were tiny fragments. After all these years, all of the pieces look absolutely pristine. This fragment has some layers, some banding on it, and that banding is very similar to some of the banding that I found in photomicrographs of the material that I have from out here. We're going to sweep back and forth like this, covering this side to side, back and forth, little by little. I've been out here 6 or 7 or 8 hours at a whack, swinging this thing till my arms break off. Within just a few minutes of taking over the metal detecting, Giorgio gets a hit. I heard something. There is something there, and we need to dig it up. It's a piece of wire, a tiny little piece of wire. We're going to take it and have it analyzed because maybe it's got something in it that's weird. Quang Binh Province, Vietnam, 1991. Ho Kan discovers a mysterious entrance to a hidden mountain cave, obscured by dense jungle overgrowth. Nearly 2 decades later, the British Cave Research Association finally explores the cave. What the team discovers is astounding. It is the largest underground chamber on the planet. It's not just a cave, it's an actual world. In Vietnam, inside this cave, it's 40 stories high. There's actually an ancient forest, flowing water, not just a puddle or stream, but an actual river. But according to area residents, what's most notable about Sundung Cave are the strange creatures that are believed to dwell within it. Local residents describe seeing reptilian-type humanoid beings emerging from the Sundung Cave, and they believe that they actually live deep inside this cave. While it may sound too incredible to be true, there have been reports that during the Vietnam War in the 1970s, U.S. soldiers encountered what they described as upright lizards inhabiting caves. Throughout Peru and around Cusco particularly, there are many stories of a tunnel system that has something to do with serpent deities which they call the Amaru. The Peruvian authorities decided it was too dangerous for people to go into these tunnels, so they looked for all the entrances they could around Cusco and sealed them up. According to Zoharic literature, there are beings inside the earth having large black eyes and a nose that has only 2 dark holes on the face. That corresponds to things we've heard about these ETs. There's a lot of evidence that these beings that we think are coming from another planet are not coming from another planet. They're coming from inside our own Earth. This notion is supported by numerous accounts of UFOs that are seen disappearing into the landscape and sometimes even flying directly into mountains. Could it be that the so-called flying saucers so often reported in modern times are not coming from outer space but inner Earth? In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, roughly 2,500 miles northeast of Australia, lie the ruins of a once great ancient city, Nan Madol, consisting of hundreds of man-made islets off the eastern coast of Micronesia. It's an 11-square-mile complex composed of over 250 million tons of basalt logs floating on a submerged coral reef. They're 18 feet long, 4 feet in diameter, and stacked 40 feet up in the air. Why did they do this? And how did they do this? Today the site lies abandoned and shunned by the local Micronesians who consider it haunted. According to legend, twin sorcerers of giant proportions came down from the sky and floated above the site and positioned the basalt columns as they desired. There's a strong magnetic field in every single one of the 250 million tons of basalt there. You can take a compass and run it along these basalt blocks, and your compass will just spin as you move it along the blocks. The local population also reports many sightings of orbs and lights that have been seen hovering around Nan Madol. You have to wonder if through magnetism, the stones were transported in the first place because they were transported through the air. It's thought that the site itself is a special power spot and an energy vortex, and that's why Nan Madol is built there, as well as this legendary sunken city called Kanamwaiso. Some ancient astronaut theorists suggest that elevated electromagnetic energy present at Nan Madol was not only a powerful tool used to move the giant basalt columns, but that it may also have been the reason that extraterrestrials helped the locals to build here in the first place. From Chile's official UAP investigations to Japan's policy reversal, from Admiral Byrd's Antarctic encounters to the ongoing discoveries at Roswell, the evidence continues to mount. Whether these beings come from distant stars, inner Earth, or our own future, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. We are not alone. As governments worldwide begin to acknowledge what many have long suspected, we may be on the verge of the greatest revelation in human history. The truth, as they say, is out there, and perhaps it's been here all along.